Hi everybody, I'm Carolyn. I'm the children's librarian at Battersea and York Gardens Libraries in Wandsworth, London, and this is another librarian book talk. Every Friday at 3 p.m. we bring you a list of books that we think you will like on a certain theme. Sometimes they're videos, sometimes they're slideshows, sometimes they're lists and pictures, but whatever the format, we really think you will love and enjoy these books as much as we do. So if you are interested in one of the books mentioned today, or any Wandsworth Library book, of course, visit our catalog and you can reserve items today and we will let you know when they are ready to collect. But for now, we are going to talk about learning science through storytelling. So normally, if you went to a library and asked for a book about science, you'd go to the non-fiction section, and that's where we keep all the fact books, books with true things for you to learn. And the fiction section is where we keep storybooks, so picture books, novels, chapter books, things like that, that are a bit more made up. But the fun thing about fiction books is that you can often also learn true things from them, can't you? So even though the story is made up, it has some real life wisdom in it. And today I want to talk about some storybooks that have real life science facts in them so that you can learn about science while you read for fun. I'm going to start by talking about How the Borks Became by Jonathan Emmett, and it's illustrated by Ellis Dolan. And this is the story of evolution. Now, you can tell the Borks are not creatures that exist on planet Earth. They exist on a planet called Charlie Bob. And this book is all about how they went from being kind of short and not very hairy and blue to being tall and very furry and yellow. And it is a fun, rhyming, colorful way of explaining how evolution works over generations and how creatures adapt and evolve to their environment in order to thrive. And my husband is a physics teacher, and he actually uses this text in his classes because it is a very clever way of simply explaining the process of evolution. And I actually learned a lot from it too. And in the back, it also has some more information about evolution on planet Earth and Charles Darwin, of course, too. And there's loads of different little creatures and surprises that evolve throughout the story, so keep an eye out for those. Next is Here We Are by Oliver Jeffers, Notes for Living on Planet Earth. And it is what it says on the tin. It is a guide to living on Earth that Oliver Jeffers wrote when his son was just born. So it's a great gift for a new baby to introduce them to the facts of life. And it's a really sweet story with really fun illustrations. But it also has actually some scientific information in it, like how land works, what's under the sea, and what's up in the sky. And it's a great book because you can enjoy the story from a very young age. And as you grow and as you learn more about the story, you notice all these little things and facts. And it's really a story that grows with you, and a great one for adults as well. So we've talked about big scale evolution. We've talked about how to exist on planet Earth. We're going to narrow it down a bit and bring it to The Rhythm of the Rain by Graham Baker Smith. And this is about more or less the water cycle, but it tells the story of the water cycle through a very beautifully illustrated, poetic tale of the journey of water from one person to another across the globe. So it's about how we are all connected and how the Earth is kind of one big ecosystem. And then also it's just a really practical insight into how the water cycle works. And to bring it down even further now, we're going to talk about Up in the Garden and Down in the Dirt by Kate Messner and illustrated by Christopher Silas Neal. And it is another gorgeously illustrated book about the life and ecosystems and diversity in your own backyard garden. And it takes place over the course of a year, so you also learn about the cycles of Earth and the seasons. And this duo also have Over and Under the Snow and Over and Under the Pond, which are on a similar theme, but about, of course, wintertime and pond life. So from Down in the Dirt to Looking Up at the Stars with Look Up by Nathan Bryan, and it's illustrated by Dapo Adiola. And it is about Rocket, there she is, who wants to be an astronaut. She's very inspired by Mae Jemison, who was the first Black woman in space. And she is extremely excited about an upcoming meteor shower. She can't wait to look up and see it. But her brother is a little less enthusiastic. He's always looking down on his phone. So it's about passion and exploration and observing the world around you. It's also about a brother-sister relationship, and it's a very tender book with fun illustrations, and it includes little did you know facts throughout about space history, space travel, and meteor showers. And Nathan and Brian and Dapo Adiola have also collaborated on a book called Clean Up, which also features Rocket, and it is about ocean pollution and what we can do to protect our oceans. And I think that came out just yesterday, so it should be hitting your library shelf soon. Next is Moon by Patricia Haggerty and illustrated by Britta Teckentrup. Britta Teckentrup is one of my favorite illustrators, and she does not disappoint in this one. The illustrations are simple but beautiful, a lovely palette of colors, and the story introduces young children to the concept of the phases of the moon, as well as to the different wildlife and activity that goes on at nighttime when we are asleep. The last picture book I want to talk about is less about the facts of science, more about the method of science and how to be a scientist. And it is called Ada Twist Scientist by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. And it is, of course, about Ada, who doesn't speak until she's 3, but once she does, she has a lot of questions, and it is about her quest to answer these questions. It's about trial and error and experimentation and the failure and discovery of science. And it's also about parenting a young scientist. And all children really are young scientists trying to figure out the world around them. And Ada's parents really tried to support her in that, which is a lovely, touching side to the story. So this book is part of the Questionnaire series, which has other picture books about the arts, science, and citizenship. And there's also a series of chapter books about the questionnaires. So there is an Ada Twist one, and there's also Rosie Revere and the Rockets Riveters. And this follows the questionnaires' friends as they try to solve problems in their community using their wits and science and engineering. And this one I really like because it's all about girl power as well. Rosie is trying to help out the Rockets Riveters, who are a group of women who helped build airplanes in World War II. Inspired by Rosie the Riveter, of course. So Rosie and her friends solve problems. Again, they have some failures, but that's all about the process of science. Next in chapter books is Al's Awesome Science, which is a series of science-based adventure books by Jane Clark, and they're illustrated by James Brown. Al and his friends do a series of different science experiments in each book, and it connects that to real-world issues that kids face, like friendship troubles, family drama, school issues, things like that. And it includes step-by-step instructions and findings for the experiments by Al so that you can do the experiments at home as well. Next, I'm going to talk about some middle grade novels. So these are for about ages 9 to 12, give or take. And the first is Time Traveling with a Hamster by Ross Welford. And this is about a boy whose father dies. And he soon discovers what appears to be a time-traveling bathtub kind of machine in his father's workshop. So he decides he's going to travel back in time and try to prevent his father's death. Now, like all time travel escapades, this obviously results in something far more complicated than our hero expects. But it actually does incorporate real physics theories of time travel and how that would work in the book. So you do learn some real life science, even if we can't travel in time yet. It's a really heartfelt, warm family story about loss and love. And I think if you're a fan of Wonder or maybe Beetle Boy, you'll really enjoy this book. And if you enjoy this book, I think you'll also like the next book, which is The Many Worlds of Albie Bright by Christopher Edge. And this, again, takes real-world physics theory about parallel universes that aren't, quite a reality we can explore yet, and applies them to another story about a child who has lost a parent. This is about Albie, whose parents are scientists. His mom dies, and he decides that he is going to go find her in a parallel universe and bring her back to their universe. And of course, antics ensue, and it's another really heartwarming story. The next book is The Girl with Space in Her Heart by Laura Williamson, and this is about Mabel, who knows a lot about the stars, and she uses her knowledge of space to come to an understanding about the world around her. She uses a lot of metaphors related to space to understand and navigate her relationships and her experiences, because Mabel also has a lot of anxiety. This book deals with depression and divorce and bullying, and how a young person makes sense of all these tough issues. But again, it's another real heartwarming story. There are lots of funny elements to it. And I think Mabel is a very relatable, sweet character as well. And there's lots of space facts too. The last book I'm going to talk about is starting to lean into the teen fiction. It's probably for the upper middle grade, maybe tween, you call it, ages about 10 to 13 range in terms of the topics that it covers. It is called Flush by HIAASEN. And there are some others in the series, Hoot and Chomp, and they all take place in Florida and have a lot to do with Florida wildlife and environment. The reason I picked to focus on Flush is it's because it's about waste and sewage, which I feel like not a lot of funny, enjoyable books are about, but this is a really quirky book about a waste dumping scam that is affecting Florida wildlife and a young boy's quest to stop it. So you learn some science about how the sewage system works and how waste management works. And it's also a really quirky, funny book that I think fans of like Holes by Louis Sachar might really like it. So those are just some books that are fiction books about science. I really believe in the power of stories to help us learn about the world around us, and I think these books are a great example of that. So I will, of course, leave a link to a list of these books, as well as others on a similar theme in our catalog for you to reserve and collect through our library takeaway system. If you are interested in more books like this, you might want to check out Lucinda's book talk about books about the planet and the environment. And if you are interested in more science activities, we of course have lots of STEM activity and experiment videos from earlier during lockdown that you can do and enjoy. And please share with us if you do them. What did you find in your experiments? We'd love to hear from you and see what you are up to. Make sure to follow us to stay tuned and have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.